Ethan had never liked being the center of attention. Back on Earth, he had lived quietly, working in a repair shop, drinking coffee at the same corner cafe, and walking home along the crowded streets without anyone noticing him. He was used to being ordinary, almost invisible. That was what he liked about life. But things changed when he joined the new colony. The colony was strange, filled with alien species from across the stars. They built tall, shining towers of glass and stone, while the ground-level streets buzzed with colors and voices that still felt unreal to Ethan. Humans were few here, a small community among hundreds of other beings. At first, Ethan thought the aliens' long glances were just curiosity. After all, humans were rare. But as weeks passed, he noticed the stares never stopped. Their glowing eyes, clicking mandibles, and scaled faces always seemed to follow him. It was not just strangers either. Even his closest friend on the colony, Mira, had grown distant. Mira was also human, but unlike Ethan, she loved the alien markets, the strange food, and the constant adventure. She had moved away to another sector of the colony, chasing new opportunities. Since then, their conversations had become short, filled with awkward pauses. She no longer visited his quarters like she once did. Ethan often sat alone in the evenings, staring at the small communicator on his desk, wondering if he should call her. He wanted to tell her how much he missed their talks, the way she made this alien world feel less lonely, but every time he tried, the words felt heavy, and he left the device untouched. Loneliness wrapped around him like a silent fog. He thought of Earth sometimes, the warm smell of rain, the crowded subway stations, the laughter of neighbors. All of it felt so far away now, almost like a dream fading from memory. Out here, he was surrounded by millions of beings, yet he had never felt more alone. When the stares grew harder to ignore, his unease deepened. Why were they watching him? Did they know something he didn't? Was he doing something wrong? Ethan walked the streets with his shoulders tight, avoiding eye contact, trying to pretend none of it mattered. But inside, it did. One evening, he decided to take a long walk through the colony's central square. The sky above shimmered with the faint glow of 3 moons, and the air carried the scent of spiced herbs from alien vendors. Ethan remembered walking through the same square months ago with Mira at his side. She had pointed at every stall with childlike wonder, dragging him along to try food that glowed or fizzed in his mouth. Now, walking alone, those memories pressed on him like weights. He missed her laughter. He missed the comfort of someone who understood what it meant to be human here, in a place where humans were few and fragile. As he wandered past a group of reptilian merchants, he noticed again the way they turned their heads to look at him. Their eyes narrowed, their tails twitching slightly. It was not hostile, but it was not friendly either. It was something else. Expectant, as if they were waiting for him to realize something. That night, back in his quarters, Ethan lay awake. He thought of Mira again. Maybe she noticed the stares too. Maybe that was why she had pulled away. Or maybe she was simply moving on, finding her place while he stood frozen, afraid of change. He pressed a hand against his chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. Humans had always endured, on Earth, through storms, wars, and hardships. Out here among the stars, wasn't it the same challenge? To endure, to adapt, to hold on to what mattered. And what mattered most to him was connection. Ethan whispered to himself, I have to try. The next morning, he picked up his communicator. His hand shook, but he sent a short message to Mira. Do you want to meet at the square again? Like old times. Hours passed with no reply. His hope began to fade. But then the device blinked with a simple response. Yes. When they met, Mira looked brighter, her hair pulled back, her smile a little unsure. They walked through the same square as before, the air alive with sounds of trade and chatter. For the first time in weeks, Ethan felt a spark of warmth return. They didn't speak much, but the silence was not heavy this time. It was a silence that said, we're still here. Yet the stares followed them both. Everywhere they went. Alien. Eyes lingered, watching closely. Ethan noticed Mira's nervous glance as she leaned closer. "Do you feel it too?" she asked softly. He nodded. "Yeah, I don't know why." They stood together in the heart of the colony, surrounded by beings of every kind. And then, the council's voice echoed across the square, translated into every tongue at once. "The time has come. The colony will begin the mating lottery." The crowd stirred, whispers and clicks filling the air. Ethan felt the weight of 1,000 stares settle on him and Mira. His chest tightened, his thoughts racing. In that moment, everything became clear. The words of the council echoed in Ethan's mind long after the announcement ended. The mating lottery. It sounded so strange, almost unreal. The crowd had reacted with excitement, curiosity, even celebration. But for Ethan, it only deepened the quiet ache inside him. As he and Mira walked away from the square, the silence between them grew heavy again. He wanted to say something, anything, to bring back the closeness they once had. But words stuck in his throat. Mira finally spoke. "I've heard about this tradition. It's old. Very old. They say it started as a way for species to survive, together." Ethan frowned. "And now they've added humans." She nodded, her eyes distant. "We're rare here. That makes us important, I guess." Important. That was the word the aliens might use. But to Ethan it felt more like being trapped, like being seen as something he wasn't. He wasn't a prize, he wasn't a symbol. He was just a man who missed his friend. As they reached the edge of the square, Mira stopped. She looked at him, with a softness he had almost forgotten. "I moved away because I thought it would help me fit in. I thought if I threw myself into this colony I'd feel less like an outsider." Ethan's chest tightened. "Did it work?" Mira shook her head. "Not really. I made new friends, yes, but..." She hesitated, then sighed. It never felt the same without someone who understood. The words stirred something in him. For weeks he had thought Mira was drifting away on purpose, leaving him behind. But now he saw the truth. She was lost too. Still, even as they shared that moment, Ethan felt the wall between them. They were both caught in the colony's strange currents, swept along by rules and traditions they barely understood. He wanted to tell her how much he cared, how much her absence hurt. But instead he only said, "I understand." That night Ethan couldn't sleep. He lay awake in his small quarters, staring at the ceiling while the faint hum of colony machines filled the silence. The announcement had changed everything. He thought of the way the aliens stared, the way their voices carried an edge of expectation. And now, with the lottery beginning, what would happen to him? What would happen to Mira? The thought of losing her again, this time not by distance but by something out of their control, filled him with dread. Humans had always fought for choice, for freedom to decide who they were, whom they loved, and what path they took. It was part of the spirit that had carried them from Earth to the stars. Ethan held on to that thought like a lifeline. But how could he bring that spirit into this colony, where ancient traditions ruled and 1,000 alien eyes judged every move? The next day, Ethan went to his work in the repair sector. Machines broke, often in the colony, and humans were valued for their skill at improvising. As he fixed a broken power conduit, his thoughts kept drifting back to Mira. He remembered the way they had laughed when trying alien food together, the way she had always teased him for being cautious, the way she made the colony feel less strange. He wanted that again. But wanting and reaching out were two different things. At midday, Mira stopped by the repair bay. It surprised him, and his heart lifted just seeing her. She carried 2 steaming cups of dark liquid, alien tea that reminded them both faintly of Earth's coffee. "I thought you could use a break," she said with a small smile. They sat together on a bench, sipping the tea. For a while, they said, nothing, just watching the crowd pass by. Then Mira spoke quietly. "Do you ever feel like we're drifting too far from who we are? Like we're forgetting Earth?" Ethan nodded slowly. "All the time. I keep thinking about the little things, she continued. The sound of rain on the roof, the smell of fresh bread, my mother's voice. And here, it feels like those things are slipping away. Her voice trembled at the end, and Ethan realized how heavy this was for her too. He wasn't the only one hurting. Mira, he said softly, we don't have to let go of who we are, even here, even with all this. She looked at him, her eyes shining. But how? How do we hold on? Ethan didn't have the perfect answer, but he knew what he believed. By remembering, by choosing, by standing together. We're human. We don't just survive. We carry our stories, our love, our stubbornness. That's what makes us strong. For a long moment, they held each other's gaze. The distance between them felt smaller now, as if the invisible wall was beginning to crumble. Later, when they parted ways, Ethan felt lighter. He still didn't know how to stop the lottery or what it meant for him and Mira, but he knew one thing. He would not let the colony decide who he was, and he would not let it take away the bonds that mattered most. That night, as he walked back through the central square, he noticed the stairs again. But this time he did not look away. He walked with his head high, his steps steady. For the first time he felt something stronger than fear. He felt resolve. Maybe the aliens saw him as a prize. Maybe they saw humans as rare and valuable for reasons that had nothing to do with choice, but he knew better. He knew humanity's strength came not from being rare, but from being unyielding, hopeful, and fiercely protective of the connections they chose. As he passed beneath the glowing lamps of the square, he whispered to himself the words he carried. Inside, we are human. We choose. And though the stairs followed him still, Ethan no longer felt like a man lost in the crowd. He felt like someone ready to remind the galaxy what humanity stood for. Ethan tried to keep busy, but the truth was always there, pressing on him. Even after his talk with Mira, the distance between them still lingered. She had moved away to another sector, built a new life with new people, and even though she met him sometimes, he felt like a guest in her world, instead of part of it. At a night in his quarters, he would sit at the desk with the small communicator in his hand. His thumb hovered over the screen, ready to type a message, but then he would stop. What could he say that would not sound weak, desperate, or foolish? He wanted to tell her how much he missed her laughter, how much her presence gave him strength, how empty the colony felt without her near. But the words stayed inside, heavy and unspoken. The stares from aliens did not help. Every time he walked through the market or worked in the repair sector, he felt those eyes on him. They were curious, yes, but also measuring, as if deciding what he was worth. He could not shake the thought that the lottery was already pulling at his life like an invisible thread. One day, while fixing a broken vent in the upper towers, Ethan caught sight of Mira in the crowd below. She was walking with two alien colleagues, laughing lightly at something one of them said. For a moment, Ethan felt a sharp pain inside. She looked happy without him. He reminded himself that she deserved happiness, even if it was not with him. But the sadness grew heavier. When he returned to his quarters that night, he sat quietly, thinking about Earth again. On Earth, he could have walked across the street, knocked on a friend's door, and found comfort. But here, everything was complicated by distance, duty, and traditions older than human memory. Why does it have to be so hard? He whispered to himself. The following day, Mira surprised him by visiting the repair bay again. She carried a small container of food from the alien markets, something that glowed faintly blue. I thought you might like this, she said, handing it over. He smiled faintly. Thanks. They ate together in the corner of the bay, talking about little things, the repairs, the strange weather systems of the colony, the endless announcements about the lottery. But underneath the small talk, Ethan felt the same silence, growing again, the silence filled with all the things they could not say. Finally, he asked, Mira, do you feel like we're far apart? She looked at him for a long moment before answering. Yes, I do. Her honesty cut him, but also gave him relief. At least she felt it too. I don't want it to be like this, he said softly. I don't want us to drift away. She lowered her gaze. Neither do I, but I don't know how to fix it. Everything is changing here. The colony, the lottery, even us. Ethan clenched his hands together. We're human. We can't let this place decide who we are to each other. Her eyes lifted and he saw a flicker of hope. You always say things like that, like we can fight back against the whole galaxy. Because we can, he said firmly. That's what humans do. We fight for what matters. We don't just let go. For a moment they held each other's gaze. Then Mira gave a small smile, the kind of smile that reminded him of the old days. Maybe you're right. Maybe we can still hold on. That evening, as Ethan walked back through the crowded square, he felt lighter. But the colony around him seemed to press harder. The stares grew sharper, as if the aliens knew he had spoken words of defiance. He wondered how long before the lottery would reach into his life, into Mira's life, and pull them apart again. That night, sleep did not come easily. He thought of Mira, of the way her voice had softened when she admitted she felt the distance. Too, he thought of Earth, of stories where humans endured against impossible odds. He thought of choice, the one thing he could never let go. The next morning, Ethan decided to act. He went to Mira's sector, nervous but determined. When she opened the door, she looked surprised. I didn't want another day to go by without seeing you, he admitted. Her eyes softened and she stepped aside to let him in. They sat together in her small quarters, surrounded by alien trinkets and maps of the colony. At first they said nothing. Then Mira whispered, I'm glad you came. Ethan felt something shift inside him. The distance was still there, but maybe it was not unbreakable. Maybe they could still build a bridge across it. As the hours passed, they talked about Earth again, about old streets, about rain, about music they both missed. The more they remembered, the closer they felt. The colony outside seemed far away just for that moment. But when the evening bells rang through the colony, a reminder of the lottery's approach, the silence returned. Both of them knew it could tear them apart. Ethan looked at her, his voice steady. No matter what happens, we have to remember who we are. We're human. That means we get to choose what matters to us, even here. Mira nodded, though her eyes were clouded with worry. I hope that's true. As he left her quarters, Ethan felt the stares again, heavier than before. The aliens looked at him not as a man, but as a symbol of something larger. It made him uneasy, but it also gave him strength. If the galaxy wanted to decide his life for him, then he would remind it that humans were not prizes. They were people. They carried hope, love, and the courage to choose their own path. And even if he didn't yet know how to reconnect fully with Mira, he knew one thing for certain. He would not stop trying. Days passed, and the colony grew louder, with talk of the lottery. Posters appeared in the markets, written in dozens of languages. Loudspeakers announced rules and schedules. Aliens whispered in groups, sharing guesses about who would be chosen, and always Ethan felt the stares. It was not only strangers now. Even people he worked with in the repair sector watched him with quiet interest. Sometimes they smiled, sometimes they frowned, but always with the same look of expectation. Ethan hated it. At night in his quarters, he sat in the dim glow of the lamps thinking of Mira. She had moved away to a different sector, built her new circle of life, and though they had started talking again, he still felt the distance. She had her own world now. He feared he was no longer part of it. The sadness was heavy, like a weight he carried everywhere. He wanted to tell her everything, that he was afraid, that he missed her deeply, that the thought of losing her to the lottery filled him with dread. But whenever he opened his communicator, the words refused to come. Instead, he held on to silence, and the silence only widened the space between them. One evening, he found himself walking alone through the central square again. The colony lights glowed above, bright against the dark sky, while crowds moved in every direction. Ethan stopped in the middle of it all, watching the endless stream of faces, scaled, glowing, feathered, furred, He felt small, almost invisible, and yet he knew. They saw him. The stairs pressed in from every side, and then in the corner of the square he saw Mira. She was standing near a stall speaking with an alien trader. When she laughed at something the trader said, Ethan felt that same sharp ache as before. She looked happy, happier than she did with him. He turned away, ashamed of his own jealousy. That night he could not sleep. He sat at his desk, whispering into the silence. I don't want to lose her, not like this, not to distance and not to the lottery. But how could he bridge the gap when he didn't even know the right words? The next day, while repairing a broken transport machine, Ethan's thoughts spilled into his work. His hands shook and he dropped a tool. His supervisor, a tall insectoid with shimmering wings, tilted his head. Human troubled? Ethan forced a weak smile. Just tired. But he wasn't just tired. He was tired of silence, tired of fear, tired of watching Mira slip further away. Later that evening, Mira came to see him again. She carried no food or tea this time, just herself. She looked restless, as if she had something on her mind. Ethan, she began, do you ever wonder what will happen if one of us gets chosen in the lottery? His chest tightened. I think about it every day. She nodded slowly, her voice soft. So do I. And it scares me. They sat together in the quiet repair bay, the hum of machines filling the air. Ethan wanted to reach out to take her hand, but fear held him back. He was afraid she would pull away, afraid she no longer felt the same closeness he carried inside. Finally, he spoke. I don't know how to stop it, but I know this, we're human. And humans don't just let themselves be carried by other people's choices. We make our own. Mira looked at him, her eyes uncertain but hopeful. Do you really think we can here? Yes, he said firmly. We always have. On Earth, we fought storms, wars, hunger, everything. And we survived because we refused to give up what mattered. A small smile touched her lips. And what matters now? He hesitated, then said quietly, us. The silence between them was heavy, but not empty this time. It was filled with unspoken feelings, with memories of laughter and long walks, with all the moments that had made them more than just two humans in a strange colony. Mira looked away, her voice almost a whisper. I moved away because I thought it would help me find my place, but maybe I was running instead, running from how much I missed you. Ethan's heart pounded. The distance he had felt for so long suddenly seemed smaller, like a bridge could still be built. He leaned closer, his voice steady. Then let's stop running, together. For the first time in many weeks, Mira's smile reached her eyes. That night, when Ethan walked home, the stairs were still there. Aliens watched him from every corner, their eyes bright with expectation. But for the first time, he did not feel crushed by it. He held his head high. He knew what mattered to him, and he would not let the colony take it away. Still, deep inside, fear lingered. The lottery was coming. He and Mira had only just begun to close the distance between them, and already the threat of being pulled apart loomed large. But humans had always found a way, and Ethan would find one too. He whispered into the night, a promise to himself, to Mira, and to the spirit of humanity. We choose. Always. And even as the colony prepared for the lottery, Ethan held on to hope. The days grew heavier as the lottery drew closer. Bright banners were hung across the colony squares, and the council repeated their announcements every morning. To most of the aliens, it was a time of excitement, even celebration. But to Ethan, it felt like a storm waiting to break. Everywhere he went, he felt their eyes. The stares no longer seemed just curious. They were expectant. Some whispered when he passed, their voices too low for him to understand. Others gave him nods of approval as if he were already chosen. Ethan hated it. He wasn't a trophy. He wasn't a prize. He was just a man who wanted to keep the few bonds he had left. At night, he thought of Mira. They had spoken honestly at last, admitting they both felt the distance. For a moment, Hope had bloomed between them. But it was fragile, like a small flame threatened by the winds of the colony. If the lottery tore them apart, that flame would die before it ever had a chance to grow. He lay awake, whispering to the silence. I can't let them take her from me. The next day, Ethan went to see Mira. Her quarters were small but warm, decorated with little keepsakes from Earth and gifts from alien colleagues. She greeted him with a smile, though he could see the same weight in her eyes. They announced. The first drawing, she said quietly. His stomach tightened. When? 2 days from now. Silence filled the room. For a long time, neither spoke. Finally, Ethan said, I don't want us to be pulled into this. Not you, not me. Mira nodded slowly. I don't either. But what choice do we have? This is the colony's way. No, Ethan said firmly. That's their way, not ours. She looked at him, her eyes filled with doubt and hope at the same time. What are you saying? I'm saying we don't have to accept it. We're human. We decide our own paths, we always have. Mira's lips parted, but no words came. Finally, she whispered, Do you really think we can fight the whole colony? Ethan hesitated. He wasn't sure himself. But he knew one thing. If humans surrendered choice, they surrendered what made them human. And he would not surrender Mira. Yes, he said at last. Even if it's just us standing together. That's enough. That night he returned to his quarters and thought hard. How could he show the colony what humanity stood for? Words were not enough. He had to act. The following morning, when the council gathered in the central square to repeat their announcement, Ethan stepped forward. His heart pounded, but his voice was steady. I am human, he said, his words carrying across the crowd. And humans do not belong in a lottery. The square fell silent. 1,000 alien eyes turned toward him. Mira, standing in the crowd, looked at him with shock and fear. Ethan continued, his voice louder now. We are not prizes to be won. We are people. We choose who we are, and we choose who we care for. That is what makes us human. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Some aliens frowned, their expressions sharp. Others looked thoughtful, even curious. One of the council members, a tall reptilian with silver scales, stepped forward. The lottery is tradition. It has bound our species together for generations. You will respect it. Ethan met the alien's gaze without flinching. I respect your history, but I will not surrender my freedom. My people will not surrender their right to choose. If you truly want us here, you must respect us too. Gasps spread through the crowd. Never before had a human spoken against the council so openly. Mira pushed through the crowd, her face pale but her eyes shining. She stood beside Ethan, her voice clear. He's right. We came here to build, not to be given away. If you want our strength, then see us for what we are. Not symbols, not prizes, but people who carry hope. The silence stretched. Then, slowly, some of the aliens began to nod. Others whispered to each other, unsure. The council members exchanged tense glances. Finally, the reptilian spoke again. You are bold, human. Perhaps too bold. But your words will be considered. The gathering ended, but the air in the colony felt different. The whispers followed Ethan everywhere, but now they were mixed. Some angry, some curious, some respectful. That evening, Mira came to his quarters. She looked at him with a mix of fear and admiration. You stood up to them, you actually did it. He shrugged, though his heart still raced from the memory. I had to. I couldn't just stay silent while they decided our lives. She stepped, closer, her voice softer now. You always talk about choice, about what it means to be human. And maybe I never understood it fully before. But today, I think I did. Ethan felt the distance between them shrink again. He reached out, taking her hand. She didn't pull away. For a long time they stood in silence, hand in hand, while the colony outside buzzed with rumors of what had happened. Ethan whispered, No matter what they decide, we'll keep fighting. We won't let them tear us apart. Mira nodded, her eyes steady. Together. That night, as Ethan lay awake, he felt something new inside him. It was still fear, yes, but also strength. For the first time since coming to the colony, he believed that humanity could shape its own place here, not by obeying, not by being silent, but by standing firm. He whispered into the darkness, a vow to himself and to Mira. We are human, we choose, and we will not be broken. The colony was restless. After Ethan's bold words in the square, nothing felt the same. Everywhere he walked, he felt the weight of whispers. Some aliens gave him angry glares, others curious nods, and a few even bowed slightly as if in respect. Ethan had never wanted attention, yet now he had all of it. Inside, he was still the same man who carried sadness in his chest. He thought of Mira constantly, the distance that had crept between them, the long silence that had once made him wonder if he had lost her forever. Even though they had stood together in front of the council, the fear of losing her remained. The lottery was not gone yet. That evening, Mira came to his quarters. She looked tired, her shoulders heavy with worry. The council has called for a private hearing, she said. Ethan nodded slowly. I expected that. Her voice trembled. Ethan, they could punish you. Or worse, they could force you into the lottery just to prove a point. He took a deep breath. I know. But if I stay silent now, then everything I said means nothing. Mira sat down, folding her hands tightly. You always carry the weight of things bigger than yourself. I don't know how you do it. He sat beside her, his tone softer now. Because I've already lost too much by staying quiet. When you moved away, I thought I could live with the distance. But it ate at me. Day after day, it made me smaller inside. I don't want to live like that anymore. Not with you, not with anyone. If we're human, we have to fight for connection, for choice, for hope. Mira's eyes softened, though fear still lingered. Then I'll stand with you, no matter what happens. The next morning, Ethan and Mira entered the council chamber. It was vast, built of stone and glass with tall windows that let in the pale light of the colony's sun. Council members of many species sat in a circle, their eyes fixed on him. The reptilian leader from the square spoke first. Human Ethan, your words have caused unrest. You speak against tradition. Why should we listen to you? Ethan felt the weight of every gaze. His palms sweated, but his voice was steady. Because humans are not here to replace your traditions. We are here to add something new. Our strength is not in being prizes or symbols. Our strength is in choosing. We build families not from lotteries, but from bonds of care. That is what makes us human. One of the avian council members tilted its head. But choice creates division.